Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, let's take the 2015 election in Canada. Like, oh wait, is this a sidetrack you want to go down, or?
Yeah, no, well, you can use that one as an
Okay.
example, but
Yeah.
the point is that there's an entrenched political class, and this is where I want you two to have a conversation about critiques of liberalism from your Antifa perspective, as well as from Trump's mustache's ethno-nationalist or alt-right critique of liberalism, because
Okay, I see where this was trying to go now.
I wasn't trying to bamboozle you or anything.
Oh no, like I was just like that comment wasn't directed at you. It was more directed at classes for like, oh, this is what you're trying to get going is like anti-fascism versus Trump's mustache, like the more central left versus versus like hard. Would you say hard right or would you say moderate right or what would you say?
Well, I don't really call myself. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Peter manages to be pretty moderate for given what depending on what circle you're standing in. Though some people would paint him as far right, and for somebody who identifies an anti-fascist, you still manage to be a rather reasonable leftist. And that's one of my whole points as a centrist is generally you get two people having a conversation, they both realize that they're a little bit less extreme than they thought they were, and the other person's less extreme than they thought they were. The big difference really tends to be about where you draw your in-group, out-group circles. But one thing that is consistently in common when you get to people who consider themselves far lefty or far righty is that there is an inherent critique of the center. There is an issue with liberalism, and Peter is pointing this out with the neocons and the neolibs and the consistent establishment. Like I talked about Clinton, Bush, Trudeau. There's these political dynasties that establish and exist within this liberal capitalistic structure that not only do the far left want to tear down, whether you're Antifa, communist, or anarchist, ANCAP, and that's also, or sorry, ANCOM, and that's also what you see with the alt-right and the ANCAPs and the libertarians and people who want to destroy the totalitarian structure of liberalism. Capitalism.
Do you want to go first, or should I?
You can go first. I'm more just give a response as I hear things.
Okay, so basically, again, it's cause effect for us, and we listen. We like freedom. Okay, if you're on the right, you're kind of the master of your own destiny, or you want to be, right? But the current. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I wouldn't say that's more like if you're left or right. I would say that more just if you're authoritarian or libertarian, and you being more libertarian, like you have more freedom. Is that what you were trying to get at?
Well, but the libertarianism.
Listen,
this is the point that I keep pointing it out. This is where the in-group, out-group thing becomes incredibly important because he's very much a libertarian towards his in-group, but when it comes to the protection of his in-group, especially against the out-group, he very much becomes a totalitarian or authoritarian.
It's basically if we have no threat to our in-group, we'd probably be libertarian as fuck. And that's why a lot of alt-righters, they start off center-left and they end up in the libertarians. And then, your Sargons of Akkad, your V's, all these fucking idiots. And then
classless politics.
Yeah, there you go. That fucking fool. And then you just... you realize that they really just complain about the system but don't really give any solutions because their framework doesn't allow them to give them, because if they obey their framework, the end result, which is the only thing all writer really cares about, is exactly the same: the replacement of their ethnic group, their in-group, their own group, whatever you want to fucking call it. So that's the main critique of an alt-righter when it comes to liberalism. The second critique is that liberalism really functions best under capitalism, and capitalism tends to suck the living life out of everything and just make everything as empty as possible.
Yeah, I think that's something we can both agree on.
So it's kind of like the birth rate thing is also also influenced. Shut up for a second. The birth rate is like this. It's not just leftism. It's capitalism as well. The birth rate is dropping because capitalism creates a system where there's not even enough money for the average Joe to have a decent family. If I take, for example, a few average country in Europe, the salaries have stayed roughly the same, but the expense of living has gone up so fucking drastically that it's almost impossible to raise 4 or 5 children under 2 salary household.
Or even one.
Old days. What?
Or even one.
Yeah, okay, it depends. I mean, I earn decent, but I guess there are other people that don't. I'm not disputing that. That's not my point. That's not my point. Okay, sure, even one, whatever. The point is that in the old days, right, a single man could spend 30 years paying off his house and still raise 7 kids. Now, without the woman even working. Now, okay, the standard of living back then was less. I do agree with you on that, but the difference between what was possible back then and what is possible now, especially when the elites say that our purchasing power has increased, is absolutely laughable. It's bullshit. It's bullshit of the highest order. And this is also contributing to the decline of the birth rate in the West. Therefore, I do not excuse capitalism, which is, well, in my personal opinion, the only system where liberalism can truly flourish. So therefore, liberalism is kind of also my enemy, because liberalism would probably defend capitalism the most.
As a liberal capitalist, the two are pretty hand in hand, because if I'm going to offer you liberty, I have to offer you a certain level of economic liberty, which is going to be capitalism.
Capitalism, exactly. Yeah. So there's a go. That there now you.
Yeah. Well, even then, I'm like for following socialism, I'm not really an advocate for. Like, if anything, I'm more like a social democrat. But how do I put this?
Yeah. See, but I
feel like it's the methodology. But I feel like it's the methodology between either. Like, I feel like it's the methodology between either, and like how we strive for equality in the nations that really it starts to become the divide.
How do we strive for equality? We're not striving for equality.
Well, you're looking to survive. Okay. Well, you're like looking more. Okay. Well. Are you a socialist? Like economically?
I economically wouldn't mind socialism. Definitely.
And this is a good pinpoint. You're seeking equality. Trump, you're seeking, as you would say, survival. My primary focus is freedom.
Yes, but you got to understand that if you look at the voting demographics, you have a vested interest in siding with me on this, because the minorities are more prone to voting for stuff that give away their freedoms in order for socialism. So I know I want socialism as well, but at least with my socialism, you would be the beneficiary of that. While in the other social...
Let's let Adderite finish what he was going to say.
Oh, excuse me.
No, I already
I didn't know I was interrupting somebody.
I was going to say...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm definitely going to jump in on this, because this, I was trying to let you two exhaust out as much as you could and get on
and then you sweep in for the victory.
Before I started jumping in.
I guess
just because I want to show Adderite, like, this is conversations, Trump, that the Trump's mustache that me and you have had like so many times that like it'll be a little scripted, but I wanted to just put forth some arguments. I've been holding back a lot of counter signals to what you've been saying for the sake of you guys having a good conversation.
No, I have a very rough idea of where he stands, and I understand where he's coming from. I hope he does.
But you just don't think that it really is you don't think that's the idea that's very like beneficiary to the society?
To my own group, no.
Sure.
I can understand. Society is like this nice buzzword, like, oh, we need to do it for the betterment of society. No, I don't give a shit about society. My group.
Well, you do, but you give a shit about your society. And
No. It's all about 14. Okay, it's all about the 14 words. I don't give a shit until that is safe. About anything, morals, values, principles. Fuck all of it. I need to secure my people. That's it.
Are you familiar with the 14 words, Adderite?
Yes, I'm familiar with the 14 words.
So
okay, let's not say.
So just for reference, I guess, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children.
Yes, so they can decide their own fate, which they cannot do if they're a minority in their own country.
Except aren't minorities in America right now able to still have the, like, even though it's America, like let's keep using America as an example, or do you want to use a different example? before I could.
If you want to, it doesn't really matter what example.
Yeah. Well, like in America, people like minorities are still able to, with American laws still keeping them down, and through American history still keeping them down, just still forge their own destiny, still have a chance of getting out there, even with being the minority.
But that's not the. Do you know how young liberalism is? When you look at it from a history perspective, like how
200 years, and that's plenty old, son.
No, dude, that's like a baby. That's like sperm in someone's balls.
Yeah, compared to traditionalism or progressivism, like it's
a blip on the map. Liberalism is a very new ideology. I do agree with that, and I'll
so there's no guarantee of liberalism remaining in the foreseeable future. So you're basically asking me to bank my entire ethnic group on the promise that in the future people were gonna play nice with us. I mean, no, I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen.
I mean, like back in the day, black people were banking on the fact that white people later in the future would help them. And nowadays, let's look at it.
Even if that isn't the case, they have a place to go back to.
Except what about the people who are in your own words minority groups? What if they only have U.S. citizenship? If they only lived in U.S. and they have nowhere else to go to? That's one of the major things that I want to look at. Even with the second generation immigrant thing, they don't have any other citizenships. They don't have anywhere else to go to, and that's what I'm trying to reference.
No. I see what you're coming from with this. You think that if an African American, let's take that for an example, right? If he would be denied citizenship and he was forced to leave on their national state, right, and he would go back to Africa, he wouldn't fit in.
Yeah, he wouldn't because his actual ethnicity, he doesn't have the same values or the same knowledge. That's one of the main things.
No, he doesn't speak the language. Do you think that wait. Do you think that if a white person goes to Africa, that he will fit in quicker than if a black person would, or the same or worse?
But whether or not a white person would fit in doesn't really make it the difference. There is an easy argument to be made that a African American is very much a distinct ethno group from an African who has never left Africa.
Yeah,
even now.
Yes,
that's white people's, and white people take responsibility for that because it is entirely white people's fault that there is an African American ethnic group.
Yes, I would definitely give you that. But
Africans weren't building their own boats and shipping over there.
No, they were enslaved by Africans and purchased by us. Yeah. Exactly.
And even in the 1900s, there were still policies that were being used against them, which is why we do have things like wealth inequality within different ethnic groups, because white people were using their power to discriminate upon others, and we didn't start realizing that until the Civil Rights Act came around.
Did you mean
slavery?
Slavery. Okay, yes, but slavery happened to everybody. You do realize that it's
it did.
A worldwide thing, right?
Yes. I'm not denying that, but still, we look at how it was used in America, and it still led to injustices that still persist in the modern day, at least economically. Maybe not socially, unless you move to the South, but yeah, economically, it still has things that go today. And if we are going to focus on the economic side of it, let's go with redlining. How about the fact that when FDR introduced redlining, after he died, people were using it.
Redlining? I'm sorry, I'm not American. What's redlining?
I actually have to tap for this real quick. 1 sec.
Classes, can you give me a short
redlining was in during I can't remember the time period.
I actually have it
pre or post.
Okay, here's it up.
I can give him a quick rush down. But it was basically the banks were creating certain areas that happened to also be specifically black areas where they wouldn't provide, not black areas. They were areas that they wouldn't provide housing loans to black people to move into if you were trying to get there. And it was official policies from banks, and there was nothing in the government actually restricting the banks from having the freedom to do this.
Yeah.
Yes, that's terrible. Yeah, I know. That's a shitty situation. What's your point?
Well, that was being used to make it so that black people and minority groups were disadvantaged economically.
Yes. You kind of proved my point here.
Okay. And yeah, I am proving your point, but the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're scared of this happening to your group of people, why not take measures and why not try and shape history to make it so that this never happens to anybody again? That's my major point of contention with this race realist or whatever you'd like to call it ideology.
Do you not realize that I just gave you the reason why I can do that 3 times, I'll give it another time. It's because we will not be the majority, and when we are not, we are basically at the mercy of the people. Did you realize that laws can overturn, right? You can.
Yeah,
you
I realize that
realize
laws can overturn, but we can all. But as I just said, we can shape history. We can use our history in order to teach people that this is an injustice. That treating people differently because of race, sex, gender, mental ability, any of those things. If we keep doing what we're doing now and showing people that treating people differently because of sex or gender or race, especially race, is wrong, then we can prevent that from ever happening by planting that idea in their mind. Because that's where the majority of discrimination has happened throughout history. And by teaching people that it is wrong through not only our school systems but also our societies, that is a good thing, and it makes it so that white people won't be discriminated in the future, black people won't be discriminated in the future, at least not to the extent that they are today.
Well, I guess that you're a more idealistic looker on the world than I am.
Well, not even idealistic, because you're never going to eliminate a problem. But the best thing you can do is take measures in order to reassure that that problem will never happen again, or at least take measures to make sure that a problem is eliminated.
Yes, exactly.
It's called a reasonable measure.
Fascism, which is called fascism. Exactly.
No, it's not called fascism.
Yes, it is. Because once the ethnic, can I say, once the ethnic groups are separated, they're free to. Do you really think that ethnonats, like white ethnonats, and once their ethno state is achieved, right? Do you really think that they would be envious if Wakanda was formed at one point, like Africans would surpass them? They wouldn't give a shit. Or if Africans would dance around the campfire, if that makes them happy, that's fine. It's the whole forcing people to interact with one another, which is creating all this fucking madness in the first place.
Except you aren't forced to interact with these people.
Yes,
you have freedom.
Oh my fucking god!
You have the freedom to associate with whoever you want.
No, you don't. Oh my, dude. Okay, class, come on, back me up on this.
I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I'm waiting for you guys to have this conversation.
Dude, come on. There's so many.
You could argue.
You have the right to associate with whoever you want, as long as it does not inhibit people.
No, you could.
In the United States, Canada, we do.
Let me just throw out some real life situations that I'm aware of. You could argue, for example, that if Trump's mustache owned a restaurant somewhere in the United States and he only wanted to associate with his people as he's describing them and denied service to people who weren't of his people, there would be government interaction upon him. And I can also point out a unique situation that exists in Canada and as well in the United States is when you're on native reserves, for example, there are certain establishments that will only serve people who are of that reservation. They're usually private establishments, things like the Knights of Columbus and the Legion and those kind of like men's groups and stuff like that have liquor licenses on reserves, but otherwise the reserves will be considered dry and they won't serve other people.
Okay, but that's more of a reason for the reserves than anything else.
The whole point that I'm making
why do we have the reserves? Why do we have the reserves?
No.
Oh, dude, no, come on.
Don't get bogged down in reserves. Ignore what I just said. The point is that you can see examples where, if Peter didn't want to associate with certain types of people from out groups around him, the government would step in. Look at the gay cake shop, for example, or things. No.
I can give you a better one. Look at the university that was denying.
Yeah, and as I just said, that was illegal. They should not be able to do that. They should not be able to decide.
Okay, but they are. The left has done this.
And you realize that those places are there. Like Harvard is currently going through court cases to make it so that they can't do that again. They did the exact same thing 20 years ago, and they're doing the exact same thing nowadays, and they're still getting challenged by law because they are breaking the law. That is the misconception that you're making, and you think that I am in support of these things when it goes against the laws in the country. And yes, you can change those laws, but until then, these are laws as they are now, and you are not going to. And unless you have damn good grounds to change them, you aren't going to be able to.
You're looking at this from a morality standpoint.
No, I'm also looking at it from a logical standpoint.
No, you're looking at it purely moral.
Well, we're trying to talk about. Sorry. You're both. So you're both looking at it from that. But Trump's mustache is very much being high level, ideological, and Adderite, you're getting into some of the more minutia of it. And when you get into each of the individual parts is where I get split, because I agree with a lot of what you're saying here, Adderite. But that's one of the things that we said we weren't going to try to get too bogged down in was the minutia of the. Because I agree, you're right. Like you're not going to be able to
classless.
turn
Like
a
the
lot of
problem
that
is with these ideologies is that even when it comes to the left, when you pick apart certain things, like a house is like an entire house is not built up just as a house. It's built up of bricks. But if all those bricks have certain problems in it, then do you think that house is really safe enough to move into?
No. The
Sorry,
point
you
of
talked
this,
way too quickly. Can you slow it the fuck down a bit?
no, but the point of the
bad.
conversation was not to, okay, let's not talk about why in modern times your idea be able to be practically implemented. The point is discussing the legitimacy of his idea in general, or the validity of his ideas in general.
Well, the idea is like
I guess you could argue if it's like, it can't be implemented, then it's useless, and from a pragmatic standpoint.
Well, even then, why? What is the aside from the preservation of race, which there are many other ways that you can do this? What is the reasoning behind ethno-nationalism? May I ask you? What is the reason for having an ethno-state?
To protect your own people.
Okay, what are the other reasons?
What do you mean? They can. Okay, wow. Okay. No. Listen. Do you believe that certain people create certain culture? That your own? Okay. Whoa. No, we're gonna go even higher. What is the meaning of life?
I just want to say I've been trying to get past race for like 30 minutes now, and you two just keep bringing it back to the fucking race realism, and I'm trying to get to the other.
No. This is good. What is the meaning of life?
To reproduce.
You know where I'm going for this, right?
Yeah, I know where you're going for this. To reproduce.
No. I'm talking about Mr.
To live your life.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, no. I'm asking you.
Are you asking me what the meaning of life is?
No. Okay, sorry. I'm asking the Antifa. What do you think the meaning of life is? What is your opinion about the meaning of life?
To reproduce and to live your life in the way that you want to.
Why do you reproduce?
Because it's a sexual inhibition. I mean, well, not inhibition, but I don't know the word for it, but you know what I mean.
No, I don't. Please.
Okay,
it's a biological directive.
It's a biological directive.
An instinct.
Yes,
sure.
I can agree to that term.
All right. Why do you think you have that instinct?
Because of your mind. Because your mind is programmed in a certain way.
What is the purpose?
The purpose is to reproduce, or what do you mean?
Yes. Why do you have the okay? It's actually the same thing.
To perpetuate
when I ask
your race.
Why you have the instinct to reproduce, I'm basically asking the same thing as why you reproduce. Yes.
Okay, in order to have kids. Well, in order to keep human civilization going.
No, you don't have the instinct to reproduce, but to keep the civilization going. No.
Okay, in order to keep the human species going.
No, it's actually more specific than that, because your genes as an individual person are more specific about propagating themselves as individual genes or sets of genes, not concerned with the overall survival of the genes around them, unless those genes are advantageous to your gene's survival.
Voila. Okay, so now that we at least outlined why people reproduce, right? You are trying to spread your genes. Yours, not some dude from half the globe away. No, your genes. You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
What is the best and safest environment for you to do that?
By having sex with someone.
What does an environment have to do with having sex with someone?
By having it with people of your own species?
Oh my god, dude.
Okay, well, why don't you go on a tangent about this?
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough, because this is otherwise going to take way too long. Fair enough. Okay, so basically you want to reproduce, and it's your genes, right? Now, who's going to have a vested interest to also spread your genes, because they would protect you because you're part of the group, the in-group, the home group, your own people. So you have a vested interest in keeping those motherfuckers alive and well fed and ready to help you. Now, this means that back in the old days, people would create tribes, to keep other tribes at bay so that they have the best chance to keep their resources and their women, etc. right? Do you agree with this?
Yes, I agree with that.
Let me know when I can go at this.
Yeah, of course you know. I mean, I think Mr. Antifa already knows as well.
It's Antifa, not Antifa, by the way.
Oh, and Antifa. Okay, sorry, I misread that.
Antifa.
Classes.
So
I'm going to come to Ontario and I'm going to protest outside your house.
And then he's going to protect himself and his own property by shooting you in the face.
Actually, in Canada, you can't kill someone.
Yeah, we don't have that right up here. I'd go to jail.
God damn it, Canada.
He can't shoot me in the leg.
Oh, okay. That's at least something.
Yeah, that's still.
As long as it's not a fatality, then you can do whatever you want.
Ooh, kinky. Now, all right. God damn it. Yeah. So basically, you're trying to find the best way to the best environment to propagate your genes. Is that the right word? Sorry, I'm not a native English speaker. Propagate, right?
Yeah. I'd say
okay.
propagate.
Okay. So how to say this? The best way you could do that is by having your own tribe be as strong as possible, to be as healthy as possible, and to basically have the best resources possible, or at least keep the resources that it worked hard to achieve. Okay? Now, enter 2000 and fucking, I don't know, some year. Do you not see where I'm going with this?
Yes, where are you going with it?
Okay, so now you know why. Now you know what most. I can't say this with 100% certainty because I have nothing to base this off of because research. But I think most alt writers, if they were really honest about it, it would generally this would probably be a big one, a very big one. They instinctively know that the only people that are really going to care about them is their own group, and they have the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, so let me drop a point though. There is a specific evolutionary strategy that you're talking about, the morality, as it were. Or, you say the meaning of life is where you started. That is that the propagation of genes is what can be considered something that you are doing, regardless of choice, because it's an involuntary or an instinctive aspect. You can turn around and drop a bunch of loads in people who are different races of you and have a bunch of mixed race babies, and you still effectively propagated your genes. In fact, you effectively propagated your genes in a way that could very easily lead to a more effective survivability of the survival rate of those genes, because they are fitted with more combinations, offering more.
No, that's the common misconception. No, I'm sorry.
You're going to talk about the regression to the mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you are. but the regression to the mean has to do with maintaining your idea of racial purity, because when you talk about what genes actually want, genes do have an element to them that seek variability. Not only there are two different productive genetic sexual productive strategies on that. Some people tend to breed to their in-group, some people tend to breed to their out-group, but breeding to your out-group can benefit the same, have the same kind of yield or same kind of benefits in the long run. Because
but only if your group survives in the long run.
But your group could face genetic bottleneck, right? There's certain
that's also it's once you have 1,000 people, there's no such thing as genetic bottleneck.
I don't know that specifically, but even at that, the point that even the fact that there is a minimal number at which there is a bottleneck, it does support the idea that genes are going to work in a direction that seeks variety. Like even the genes of white people are not the same genes of white people that existed 600 years ago, or however many hundred years ago white people rolled around. Like these genes, some of them are the same, but there's been a vast amount of change that's been gone through these.
Yeah, there's also a question I'd have to ask you. What if breeding with your outgroup actually assisted in your children?
Yeah, that's what I was arguing.
Okay, how would you assist?
Okay, let's take the sickle cell for example. Something that I'm guessing that you know. Now, the sickle cell is mainly contained within Africa, but it's also, not sickle cell itself, but malaria.
Yeah, it was a genetic response to malaria.
Yeah. Most of that stuff is within Africa, but it's also related to Italy. Now, if you want, if you had if you wanted to, try and make it so that that sort of gene went away in order to make it so that your children was better, wouldn't you want to find someone who didn't have that trait, so that genetically through reproduction would have a less likely chance of having a child with that sickle cell being born?
Yes, I guess you would
Okay.
want to do that, but
Okay. And would that person have to be white or black in order to do that?
No, but we're talking about averages here.
Well, yeah. And the average amount of people who have the sickle cell are from Africa. Most people in Africa are black, and most people who don't have it are white. Most people who are white are all across the world. So if you wanted to make sure that your children did not have the sickle cell, wouldn't you want to then reproduce with somebody who is, I guess, white in order to guarantee that your child has least likely a chance to have that gene in them?
Is he just making my point, or I don't understand?
No, because what I'm advocating for is that maybe you'd want to have sex with someone who isn't in your group in order to make sure that, like, let's say a white person might want to have sex with a black person in order to make sure that their children doesn't have a gene that could be harmful to them.
That was my broader point. You just made it from a perspective that he could inherently disagree with, though, because you framed it around race, and he doesn't care about what the black genes want.
Well, yeah, but what if a white person has and they have to have sex with a black person?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It really argues. It really works if you put that point. If you make it from the perspective of that genes, the meaning of life, and genes have a sense of if you're going to make your compass for what is right or what is wrong is what genes inherently or biologically just function to do, and that's propagate. And that's not only propagate but seek out massive amounts of variation of themselves. Genes are constantly changing and mutating and having all kinds of malfunctions, as it were, that end up turning into traits that are more beneficial in the long run. But that's
if they were selected in the natural selection, of course.
Yeah, and that's where the environment comes into, right? It's a combination of the two. So, but humans have blown natural selection out of the fucking water, man. Think about how many people with an appendix that just shouldn't be alive. Right?
Yeah.
Humans should have evolved out of the appendix like 100 years ago, or whatever they invented that surgery. Okay,
Well,
so
okay.
I can't drag either of you into this guy. I'm gonna get off because it's the race thing gets bogged down for a long time.
No. We can go higher. We can go higher if you want.
Okay, why don't we ignore race then, and let's focus on a different issue than classes?
That's what I was saying. So I wanted to, and actually I should touch. You know what? I'm gonna touch on the race one last time because I get fun. I have fun with this conversation.
Oh, great.
Trump's mustache.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I hate to break it to you.
Go for it.
Little secret. There are more white people on the planet now than there have ever been in the history of white people.
I know, but that doesn't take away the fact that they're still going to be in a minority in their own countries, and therefore to be in a position where they will not be able to decide their own future.
Western countries, as Adderite is arguing for, especially places like Canada and Norwegian countries, etc., have all kinds of rights and opportunities. They have so many rights for minorities that you're concerned about minorities outbreeding you.
Yeah.
So how can you say minorities have no rights and protections?
Because we are giving it to them, and they have never given it to us.
But
let me ask you this, Trump.
But hold on, that would just switch around though, because you'd be the minority. These things are written into law. You would be the minority, or do you?
Classes. His argument is that you can change laws. But here's the other thing that I have to ask.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, and Trump's mustache. Here's what I'd have to ask you. Right now, Canada, and classes can attest to this, has some of the most immigration-friendly policies within the world. Yet we are still over the course of the last.
That's not true. It's harder to immigrate into Canada. We have very friendly refugee policies. It's harder to immigrate to Canada than it is to the United States.
Oh, wait! Isn't there a naturalization process for refugees that got passport to go?
We have a value-based point system, which means you have to have a certain level of economic status, cultural cognitivity, or cultural competency, and you have to pass a bunch of tests, and you have to. There's a quality of human that we allow to immigrate into Canada. The United States is much more open. They have lotteries. They have anchor citizenship. Canada, I don't know if Canada has anchor.
I don't think Canada has anchor citizenship. I can quickly ask my mother if you'd like.
No, we do, because there's recently been a problem with Nigerian people over and their babies in Canada, And because the CBC did an expose where they covered a place. It was a place in Nigeria that was actually telling people like relatively.
Right. Anyways, do we want to get back on the
people.
point before we move on to a different one, classes?
Yes. Sorry. I got.
All
caught
right.
up.
Anyways,
I hate the CBC.
I mean, so
Okay.
do I. But
All
so,
right,
is
go
there a
ahead.
point that we want to finish, or do we move on
Oh
to
yeah.
let's say?
Well, so I wasn't my whole. There are more white people than there's ever been in the history of fucking.
That still doesn't
Okay.
create. You can say that all you want. It doesn't negate the problem.
But so you were even arguing for the R-type K-type difference, right? Is that you act like that's a concern, but if you were to take
No.
certain
I'm saying that in a way.
But why would
to
you be
explain
concerned?
why
Why would you
in the long run? Sorry. Go ahead.
So why would you be concerned about replacement? So white people or even Asian people, depending on the culture, tend to breed in a strategy that results in a higher quality of human, but a significant less amount of them. But the individual is more capable. The individual has more freedoms, more rights, more economic advantage in the world than the countries that tend to breed. Yeah, you think that your average American isn't a more powerful individual than your average Indian,
dude,
or your average Chinese person?
Again, you're saying this assuming that the system is going to be the same. All this is based off of, if we're going to be nice to migrants when they come the majority are going to be nice to us.
No. What I'm arguing is that
this is not the case.
What I'm arguing is that the quality of person, like whether or not you do an R-type or a K-type breeding strategy, is that it's not that big of a deal that there's not as many white people as there are Asian people. Like the race war is over. Asians won it. Like there are more.
No.
Dude.
Okay.
No. I'm sorry. Now you're thinking that what?
Let's go.
One sec. Okay. How about we do this?
No, Adderite. Let us go. Let him go.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but you make it sound like the goal for white people was to outbreed Asians around the planet. That's not the fucking point. The point is what?
Well, that's okay. Then we agree on that, and so that's my point is that there are more white people. Like, how are you concerned about a removal
because
or
their
extinction?
Majority is going to. If there are 2, 3, 15 billion Asian people, as long as we get to decide what happens to our people in our homeland, I really don't give a flying fuck.
Okay, that's true. I can't continue. We'll move past because the only argument I do will bring us in a circle where I say that but there are state rights that are argued for protecting individuals.
Why don't we move on to another point? Let's go with enforced gender roles. Is that the second one that you brought up? Is that the one we want to go on?
Wow, this is actually an agenda. I'm sorry. For sure. Okay. The gender thing is really just comes down to breeding, really.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the gender argument is probably very similar to the race realism argument, but it's even easier to make because the genetic distinctions between men and women are so far superior and more numerous than the genetic distinctions between black and white or racial groups, right?
My question is do you think that societally women should be treated differently than men, or that they should be treated equally? Trumps. Mustache.
Specify which
okay.
part?
Do you think that do you believe in a more patriarchal society, or do you believe more in a society where women and men have the same opportunities, rights, and values as society? Okay. And why is that?
Because it proves birthright.
Okay, are there any other reasons?
Well, there is an argument that's going right. It's not settled on yet. But it's essentially saying that women are too altruistic to make the hard decisions. And this is obviously on average because this matters when you're in a democracy because everybody gets to vote, right? So there's this argument going around that women are way too altruistic and nice and conformist to make the hard decisions that would be needed to safeguard a country from, let's say, demographic replacement. They can't say no to a sad face with puppy eyes saying, "Give me food." And essentially, we see that even if we safeguard the nation and the people that live in it, if we allow women to do, I mean, this is not everybody. I'm not sure about this myself, but there are people that saying that even if we safeguard this, in the end, their uncontrolled altruism, if they get back into power or something like that, they would go back to doing exactly what caused the problem in the first place. Okay, silence.
I was waiting for Adderite to chime in.
Well, yeah, I was like, I was actually thinking
like how
to jump in and immediately. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's like that's making.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's more making assumptions like you're making assumptions that women aren't going to be able to aren't going to be able to make these certain decisions, or women aren't going to be able to do these certain things. But
it's
really,
because no, it's not that women in general like it's not like we're talking about generally like on the whole, like if you take all women, you're always going to have like the outliers. But generally speaking, we think that women are not going to. Women are conformist. I mean, you might agree, disagree. I don't really care. It's pretty. This one is fairly decided on in the alt-right, is that women are fairly conformist. They go with the flow. They try to not cause as much trouble with anybody really. And this is really to do with.
You're not familiar with the same girls I am.
Maybe.
You're also not familiar with gender studies, obviously, but please continue.
Okay, so basically what it comes down to is they try to avoid conflict based on the instincts that they had. Like if they fought back in the old days with the tribe, right, then they would be killed because obviously. So
somebody wants to deal with an unruly woman.
So they would have a much better. I mean, they would be selected for women that were more conformist because they tend to live longer. Rather, if you have a rebellious woman, well, yeah. So that's the theory, at least. I mean, that's actually what a lot of them actually agree, including me. I think women are generally conformist if you keep them in check.
But it's a whole keep them in check thing. Like, how do you know that? Like, why would letting like women getting into these places of power be a bad thing?
I told you, because of uncontrolled altruism.
Okay, and how inherently is uncontrolled altruism a bad thing? Like, yeah, it can be. Like, yeah, like as you said, it can be used to
by like bleeding the nation dry, open gates, etc.
Okay, but let's look at historical societies such as Ireland or Norway or Sweden that have had societies in them where women were actually more predominant, were used in battle and had leaderships.
Specify.
The Celts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they had many like female leaders, and they were actually one of the best societies ever. They were really only, and mind you, they were very battle hardened. Like they were.
Sorry, you cut a battle. What something?
They were battle hardened. Like the society. Yeah, like the societies like in Ireland by the Celts were very much battle hardened societies.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the only reason that they fell was because other societies were being paid to, like I'm talking like Norway, Sweden, and even someone in Ireland, they were being paid to go after other societies like other clans and such. And it's also the fact that England was going after them and was using like England's power in order to sort of subjugate them, in order to force women, back into submissive positions. And hell, I'm gonna say this right now, the only reason why I think women really have the submissive positions that they do in like patriarchal societies is because of religion in a lot of cases. But we're not really talking about that unless you want to, because religion is very much traditional values, and we are talking about traditional values.
I'm not religious at all.
Okay, sorry, I assume.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I understand why you assume that. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, no, that's an important point. Is there are? Sorry, I might have misheard, but Trump's mustache. You're not religious, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then that's pretty common. Like Richard Spencer, for example, is an atheist. It's a very common thing, especially amongst, as you talk about like the libertarian to alt-right pipeline or the libertarian to ethno-nationalist pipeline that exists, is that there is very much an idea of atheism within that group.
Well, there is ideas of atheism, but like I look at a lot of the like alt-right leaders, and like aside from Richard Spencer and possibly Lauren Southern, I haven't noticed.
Okay, okay. Trump's mustache. Please respond to the statement. Lauren Southern is possibly all right.
Lauren Southern.
Oh my god! No. Fucking Christ! Holy shit!
She has focused on the JQ. She does focus on traditional gender roles.
Yeah, but
she
she's
is very much a
thought.
race realist.
Dude, no, I'm sorry.
So you can't be an alt-righter if you're a thought, or in this case, a woman. Or what's your basis for that argument?
No. You can totally be one. It's you can be a woman.
I would need to see citation that she's focused on the JQ, and I'm pretty sure that I know she's critiqued liberalism, and I know that she's critiqued gender roles, but I don't know if she has the specific stance on race, or if she does that civ cuck thing where she refers to
she does most definitely does that civ cuck thing.
Culture instead of race. That's like I do. I don't argue for a racial difference. I argue for cultural differences.
If you want to argue that Lauren Southern light, I would say yes. If you argue that Lauren Southern is all right, I tell you to get a brain. No, I'm sorry. Not no.
So Adderite, then I got to dig into this one because it's fun. We were going
it was who's that one guy who's just like a super libertarian guy?
What
guy? I can't remember his name.
There's a lot of super libertarian guys.
Well, no, it's like this. I don't know if his name is Mark something, but Dave Rubin.
Oh, Rubin, the Jew. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, like Lauren Southern Dave, like Lauren Southern directly referenced Dave Rubin. I mean, not Dave Rubin. Lauren Southern directly referenced the JQ within that 30-minute conversation that she had with Dave Rubin. Like that.
Yes,
like, I legitimately looked into that after we've had that conversation classes. Like she did reference.
What did she say? What did she say? Dave Rubin. All right. Well, let's check it. What was the reference? Dave Rubin, Lord Southern, JQ.
There's more just the whole like globalistic position on it.
Okay, but is that the whole? But that's one of the things that when someone says globalist or bank,
like she was.
Do you automatically fill that in with Jew?
Well, no, because she was directly referencing Jews and globalism within the same context.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean.
I
believe, like, if you go section by section, there are 3 sections. I believe it's either in Islam and European immigration or violent protests and nationalism. It was about a year ago.
Because we ditched that bitch about 4 years ago. I mean, maybe she changed.
I mean, like, I've heard her mention the JQ in one of those videos. I watched the entire hour-long thing, but I do remember her referencing in one of those videos.
Okay, what was her stance on it? Did she say like
the immigration? What like she never straight up called herself alt-right, but she and not a lot of people on the alt-right do. Let's face it. Like even you can agree with that somewhat. But
yes, because it's not an organization. That's why
it's not. It's not. It's an ideology, and I'm not saying that's an organization. I'm saying
no. It's not even an ideology. It's a dome. Like how the
it's a combination.
Nationalist the same as anarchist. For fuck's sake, dude.
So if you use the mainstream media definition of the term, it's a very far-reaching ideology. If you use the internet in-group version of the term, it's an ideology that is just a little more exclusive. But it's an umbrella term that is, not an ideology. It's a series of ideologies. And how wide you draw that term depends if it's the mainstream media using it or the in-group using it. Because the in-group are very firm about whether or not you're alt-light or alt-right, for example.
Yeah.
But the mainstream media just likes to call Sargon of Akkad alt-right, for example.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah, right?
No,
exactly.
He's not. Like, we've had this conversation, like...
Wow. Sorry. Yeah,
no, seriously. No, seriously, like, one thing we can both agree on, like, you're somebody who is, like, in the, like, alt-right or in an alt-right or whatever dialect you would like to use. Like, even you can agree that a lot of what the mainstream media does is they paint the wrong people as being in that ideology or whatever you'd like to class it as, organization.
Well,
dome.
can I even make an updating statement or observation that I've made about the group is if you're even gonna there's a debate within what was okay, so alt-right as an umbrella term used by the mainstream media, and then alt-right as it got they had their in-group distinguish between the alt-right and kick the civ cucks out and make that very clear distinction about their beliefs and their ideologies. And then now that group has been moving on since like Charlottesville, and especially the failure of Charlottesville too, you have this whole do we still call ourselves the alt-right? Do we take on a new optics approach? Do we still, and the people who seem to still be cling to that name are like Richard Spencer and Heel Turn and the
Well, I'll say
Daily
this right now, like I probably shouldn't
but-
help this, but I'll say this right now because of how the mainstream media has reacted. Like the people who are on the far right or alt right, or whatever you want to say, they always change their symbols. So yeah, I think that they are going to start using a new coin term before the mainstream media sort of gets onto them, so that they can disassociate themselves from things like Charlottesville.
Well, yeah, and that's the joke about gamer, right? Like gamer is code word for online fascist, right? PewDiePie fan, like that's they're
Was it
constantly.
actually?
Well,
Holy
that's
fuck.
but that's what the mainstream media is going to tell you. If you go to
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry.
if you go to
Wait,
if you go
remember
to
that OK sign that was fashion?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Go to a left-leaning subreddit, and anytime you make a PewDiePie reference, they're going to turn around and call you a white supremacist. Like
No. If people referencing PewDiePie meant that they were alt-right, I would have called everybody in my school alt-right at this point. Like, oh
This is capitalism at its finest. Look at this.
Oh boy. But all right, yeah, back on the whole like traditional gender role stuff. Like, do you think that like allowing women to act the way that they want sexually and also societally, and allowing men to act the way that they want sexually and societally would be beneficial, or would it more just not have an effect? Like, just to bring it back to the whole like,
it would have a
thing.
negative effect if you allow them to act in any kind of way sexually. Yes.
Okay, and why is that?
I don't know. How about fucking children? Do you think that that's a good idea?
That's not really
That's
a
exactly
gender
what that means.
role.
You
Really
said,
isn't a gender role.
and I quote, no, sorry, I'll say it roughly.
Okay.
You said, what I understood, what you said was, would you mind restricting women in any kind of way sexually? That's what I heard.
And let me
ask the
clarify
same
that.
question with the word consent thrown over top of it?
Yes, because the reason like why I mentioned
Okay, and let me clarify something.
consent. So if you said pedophilia is okay, I would tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and so would I, because pedophilia is like, this is where biology can run into it, and also neurology. But yeah, pedophilia is wrong. I think that's something we can both agree on. And even people who are like LGBTQ or anything like that don't want like no maps or anything. Like, I would like I'm bi. I wouldn't want no maps having verification for the sexuality.
Dude, I've already seen some articles.
The idea, sorry, it really creeps me out that as a leftist, you're even familiar in using the term maps, because that means that they've had a level of effectiveness where they've established that term in the lexicon instead of you just calling them pedophiles like the proper term.
Well, yeah, because that's what they're trying.
What is maps? What is maps? Sorry.
Maps, exactly. So a far righter, let me go here. The far righter here isn't even familiar with the term minor attracted person. Is that not what it means?
What the fuck?
Yes, that's what it means.
So
I'm using it because I think.
So let me finish.
Okay,
this is my point. Then you can explain why you're using it. But my point is that they have gotten so effective at infiltrating the progressive, accepting community that they've got some people in the community here to use the term maps instead of pedophile. So right here, Adderite, you better be very careful on the ground you're treading. Why do you use the term maps?
Because that is the term that they are using. And by showing that,
there was a perfectly fine term for it, pedophile.
Well, yeah, because they don't use the term pedophile. That
doesn't matter.
And by telling people that what they
everybody does. Everybody knows what a pedophile is. Everybody.
Yeah, but they don't. I'm not saying that not everybody knows what they are, but what I'm saying is these people don't use the term, and instead they use dialect that people won't be able to pick up on, or will try to mainstream it.
Were you using the term maps to expose them, or were you using the term maps?
Expose.
Okay. I'll give you that. I'm not going to judge you or accuse you of any
Yeah, I won't defend pedophiles or maps or whatever you want to call them. Like they're just scum.
But,
How about
but
bestiality?
That's what I hear. When I hear that could be
bestiality is the same thing because just like you shouldn't be having.
What if they call themselves apps, right?
Well, then you can just say, okay.
But I would be concerned about that. You should be concerned when their dialogue or their lexicon has infiltrated your dialectic, because there's a certain level of social constructivism based around that, and that is PC culture right there.
Yeah.
And
by using the term, but also showing that this is what the term means, you can use it to expose that and to try and dissuade people from actually going and supporting these people.
I do agree with you. So you should definitely always say maps/pedophile.
I'm just going to keep on saying pedophile, to be honest.
Yeah.
I as a centrist, I'm going to start saying maps/pedophiles. I'll meet you guys.
Okay. All right. I'll do that as well. Like,
I'll keep the pedophile. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Pulling you to the right here slowly.
Yeah, but
so
but I mean by that is like allowing. But what I mean by that is allowing them to like have like. Let's use the 1940s when patriarchy started to be more of a buzzword among the like women's liberation front, allowing them to take factory jobs, allowing women to do a bunch of other things, and allowing women to, let's say, have more promiscuous sex as we did see a rise in the 1960s, and also allow women and men to go and have sex with people of the same sex.
I am all for more promiscuous sex, just stating for the record.
Well, I know you live in Ontario, so how much is the flight ticket? But yeah, Trump's mustache. What's your whole take on that?
Sorry, what?
What's your take on what I just said?
Would they have a more promiscuous sex, or was there something?
Well, no, allowing them to have jobs that like society, like by societal traditions, are more taken by men, and men vice versa. Allowing women to be more sexually promiscuous and have more casual sex, as we do societally accept with men.
Wait, because that's more things. So I'm just gonna tackle them.
Okay, so let's go with the factory jobs one first.
Yeah. Okay, first. Essentially, if they fulfill their goal, if they want to have a career afterwards, I really don't mind all that much. It's essentially this. It's like there's a window that women are viable to have children, right? And it's a very small one compared to their wide lifespan, right? Now, I would actually advise. Listen, the more I can incentivize rather than enforce is better, right? If women generally knew that, okay, they probably already know that their window is limited, but you can always just first get an education, then have children as much as you want, and then afterwards you still have 30 years to make a career and work for some asshole in a suit. And I mean, what's the rush? Do you think men do that for fun?
No, they don't. What if women just like mentally don't feel that pull to have as many kids, or even what if a man in that situation where a woman doesn't want to have that many kids, or wants to focus more on work? What if a woman has kids and then after a certain point when the child doesn't need to be with the woman as much, like for breastfeeding and stuff? What if the man takes care of raising the child and then the woman goes off to work?
That latter is not ideal, but that's a choice that they have to make. But,
sorry, keep putting in and out. Could you try and repeat that? Sorry.
Oh, excuse me. That's a choice that's not ideal in our thing that women excel at raising children.
You cut out again. Just one more time. Like you said, ideal.
Hello. I'm going to do testing real quick. Hello, am I roboting? Is it good?
You're good. No,
you're good.
You were cutting out, but stay nice and close because I think it's the noise gate that's cutting you off.
All right. So essentially, it's not ideal because women are better, especially in the initial years at raising. But if the couple makes that decision because the female makes more than the male, then that is a strategy that they can pursue. But generally speaking, it would be ideal if women had children first, at the very least, and then maybe a career afterwards.
Okay. So, do you think that women should still have personal freedoms to pursue their life in the way that they would like, just as much as men do societally, as you can agree with?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay, what is that extent?
I already explained to you, dude. The
Again, with all children.
Uncontrolled oral tourism, and then therefore, it's basically when it comes down to folk. I don't mind a female, even politician, or a female factory boss, or anything like that.
What I would ask is, what if the woman can't have kids?
Well, then obviously she's going to focus on her career or something else.
Okay, and what if she still wants to be very sexually active even though she can't have kids?
Then she can, I guess. I mean, what's the problem?
Okay, would that still be a detriment because you're taking away a man from society that can have kids to a woman that isn't able to?
I'm pretty sure there are going to be men that also can't have kids. That's illegal.
Yeah, but what will happen if the woman can't have kids but the man can, or if the man can't have kids but the woman can? Would that not also be a detriment to society?
As long as the man has kids of his own afterwards, but
they aren't able to.
So
like biologically they can't.
No. You misunderstand. If the man has already impregnated the woman, right, another woman, and he has raised a family, and somewhere there's a divorce. Again, not the ideal moment, because ideally I would want a nuclear family. But if they divorce, it would be possible for them to have a couple, and it would be not a detriment to society. You got to understand, this is not a what if this, what if that. You basically have the mindset of, how can I serve my own people the best? And everything that you do is based on that because of the return.
And what about people? And this is true. What about people who don't exactly care about continuing on like the society or their people? What if they simply want to be sexually promiscuous in their life? And this will lead to my second point eventually. But what about people who simply want to be sexually active and do not want to have kids? Should society allow them to still do that?
I don't think society can prevent them from that. I think they should be publicly shamed like a motherfucker.
Well, publicly shaming is preventing them. It's making them feel ostracized.
No, it's not. It's
societally.
Gays have been publicly shamed in Middle East. That doesn't stop them from putting their dick in another man's rectal cavity.
No, but it does lead to a lot of prevention from them actually societally doing what they would like to do.
Yes, but consider the alternative.
What, just having fewer kids in the future?
No, not having a non-replacement birth rate.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Having a non-replacement birth rate.
1 sec.
Wait, is he taking a piss or?
I'm not sure.
Okay, do you mean a non-replacement or a sub-replacement?
What's the difference?
Okay, a non-replacement means that there is a deficit, or the amount of people in that society isn't growing at a certain rate. But a sub-replacement rate is one that still, grows the population of that society or country, let's say, but while not doing it at an exponential rate. Right now in Canada and
1.6 is basically you're not making enough kids. You need 2.1.
Okay.
Not call that whatever you want.
Well, and that's okay. I'm gonna hop back in on this one because you guys keep getting bogged down in race. But once again, there are more white people in there. Whether or not minority, the R versus the K type strategy will still result in a smaller amount of higher quality children that by no means will be unable to form their own nation, govern their own destiny. Especially if you think white people are capable of the political governance that they are genetically, then there's no reason to say why they would ever end up in that situation. That would make sense.
Yeah, then the fact that the amount of women, basically.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, dude. The reason we have multiple problems. We have one problem is that we don't have a replacement birth rate, and the second problem is we have other ethnic groups that are going to.
Okay. Well, these are two
separate things. Why?
Let's say that's already an SSD. Let's say it's 100% white. Let's say it's 100% white. What about then?
Yes. What? What?
Should women be able to should the society be able to go below the 2.1 birth rate if it is a 100% white country and there's no possibility, not issue, but no possibility of other people coming into your country? What then?
No, you would ideally try to replace the people you already have.
Okay, but is the 2.1 like children like it says 2.1 children born per woman, right?
Per family.
Okay.
But
here's the thing. What about the amount of people who have a birth rate much higher than that? What if the society overall has a much higher rate than that? Wouldn't that eventually?
But you would also have people that only have because of miscarriages, etc. These would balance each other out. The point is to have a majority. Then the point is to have more than 2.
Okay, and why is that essential?
Because you don't fucking replace the people you have.
And yet there is still a large majority of people, for religious reasons or other reasons, that still want to have more children, and so it will eventually balance out.
People like what you're saying that don't want to have any kids and just want to be promiscuous. They would balance each other out. There's a difference between a few of those happening and having an fucking civilization of degenerates. Don't you understand?
And our entire civilization isn't made up of degenerates.
Yes, it fucking is, dude.
How?
Because we don't have a replacement birth rate, you.
Okay, where in the world do we not have a non-replacement birth rate?
Africa, India, Asia. Fucking Christ! You can look this up yourself. Are you?
Okay, really? Because earlier, weren't you pointing to the fact that places like Africa have, like 8 kids per family? That's still a replacement birth rate. If anything, that's way above a replacement birth rate.
Wait, what the fuck? I just said that they have a replacement.
Okay, I'm asking for countries that don't.
Most white countries, to be honest. Most Western countries.
Yeah, and I'll back them up on this, but as far as I know with the statistics, so what tends to happen is as the population gets richer and more educated, it tapers off in its reproduction. So it's not that it's the replacement rate is what? What is it? 1.6? What's the replacement rate?
Depending. No. The replacement is 2.
Oh, okay. So it's 2 point something as the replace. Oh, I didn't know that was the replacement rate. Yeah, I guess we die a lot quicker than we're born, eh? So the 2 point something is the replacement rate, but the idea is that people of non-white cultures are replacing at like a rate of like 4 to 1 or some shit like that. Like it's just a much higher rate in general.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because they don't have like birth control, or at least not a whole bunch of birth control.
But
no. It's not just. It's like they don't want to use it. It's not that they don't have it. The Muslims in some Western countries don't have a lack of birth control. It's because they don't want to use it. They have a different reproductive strategy.
Okay, but the main point of that the main problem I have with that is that you're focusing on the majority. What I'm looking for is for rights for the people who aren't like that. And even then, like if we look at the United States still has a 2 point.
God damn it, Adderite. No, all right, Adderite, you almost hit the nail right on the head there, as you were going to say the rights of the minority. And you're 10 steps from drawing your point to what I would say, and that's the rights of the individual.
Well, no, like the rights of minorities are already the rights of the
I just want to point out
okay, what does it matter if it's the right of the individual, right of the minority? Been here before. We know what will happen if we do this. We will give them the fucking protections, and then when they come in the power, they can take them the fuck away from us, and then we're fucked.
Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and join us in the Nameless Debates Discord. We hope to see you there.